My name is Rich Thayer, Managing Partner at Halteres Associates.
And I'm Mickey O'Day, the founding partner at Halteres Associates. We're here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Halteres Associates. It's amazing to think it has been 20 years, but it has. It's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot. We'd like to share some of our experiences with you.
Right back when we started, I remember one of our clients saying, you know, the hardest industry that I've had to hire into is diagnostics, finding managers and people who understand it. And I thought, it's not that bad. Looking back over 20 years, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So today we'll spend some time rehashing a bit about the last 20 years and what we see now in the industry today and some thoughts about where we see the diagnostics industry headed.
Yeah. I look forward to it. You can't think of the product for the diagnostics industry out of context of the entire ecosystem. And, it took us a long time to really understand that. Visiting a whole lot of clinics all over the world and talking to a lot of people about these issues and realizing that you have to really understand all the pain points of the physician and the patient and the staff, the healthcare system itself. If you don't understand that, you will definitely design the wrong thing.
Yeah, and the ministries of health, the procurement agencies, the funders, they all play a critical role in delivering the products and technologies to market as well as keeping them on the market. Back when we started, the focus was much more on the technology. Wow, that's a cool technology. And, where do we take it? What market do we go to? And over time, we realized that it really is much better to, if you will, start on the right-hand side of this, the right to left thinking, and first understand what does the market really need? What is the use case, and how is that product going to be used, and who are the individuals that are going to use it? And then go to the lab and start to develop what the product is that will satisfy those needs.
So we mentioned this notion of right to left thinking, but it's really a process that we worked through over the years and help people understand what are all the things about the marketplace that they need to understand before they can design the right product.
So many times a wonderful new product would be developed and come to the marketplace only to realize that that's just one piece of the puzzle. And with that new solution alone, you still aren't really changing the practice of medicine or helping the patients or having a more efficient process. So we stepped back and asked ourselves, how might we get to that point a little bit easier with our clients? And so we developed a process that allows us to take a look at commercial attractiveness criteria, as well as other criteria that speak towards the technical likelihood that that product or technology would be successful. And we go through looking at the technology and defining what those technical attributes are and defining how they may address the commercial needs and the commercial opportunities, and then go through a whole process of rank ordering and comparing one to the other. At the end of the day, we have usually several applications that look like they should work well for the client. So one of the things we realized over the years at Halteres is it's very important to leave our clients with the ability to go on and do their own programs themselves. We don't desire to be part of that project or that program for years and years and years. It's important for us to come in, spend a month or two or three, help them get over the hump, if you will, and then take off on their own. And towards that end, it's amazing. We have 150 or so associates now at Halteres all over the world. Yeah. So that's a great part of our network as well. And many of them understand this process. So they're able to help, bring this knowledge base, this right to left thinking, this understanding of the ecosystem and how to pull together and create use cases and product profiles, et cetera. So it's really worked out very well.
A lot of the people that we use have done this before. That is, they worked in companies like we did. We both ran diagnostic companies, and so we know what that's like. And so we also recognize that some consultants really don't contribute a lot, especially when they don't have much experience in what they're trying to give you, advice about. But the people that we have can say, well, when I did that way back when, they're coming from experience. They know the client doesn't want you to stick around forever. There's a job to be done, get it done, and get the heck out of here, because that's the way we wanted consultants to work for us when we ran companies, and we know that's what they want from us.
That's a good point. Really what we are is the middleman, right? The interpreter, the go-between, be it between industry and a global health partner or a venture capitalist and a funder and a startup company. It's helping to express the opportunity and the options for that technology in a language or in such a way that those that are taking it from the other end, funding or picking up, understand, what the opportunity is.
It's such a good point. Where the global health community wants products which are very inexpensive and work very well, and they push and push and push the companies to offer it to them at a very low price. But then the companies, if they don't make enough money, they can't continue to supply it into that marketplace. So we're off in the middle talking about the business models. And, if they don't have a margin like 40%, they can't even keep the lights on.
Yes.
And we've seen people take margins of like 10% and then go out of business. They want to do good, but they don't do it in a sustainable way.
Yes. And that sustainability is key. What's amazing, though, coming out of this pandemic is now many of our clients and many companies in industry are starting to ask these questions. They recognize that there are other opportunities. Now that the new systems, the new instruments are out there, there is the opportunity without having to place, millions of dollars of new hardware to have it there and do it for neglected tropical diseases or sexually transmitted infections or other things that really are very impactful on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, we're so passionate about global health. We're often talking about these diseases, but we got to remember diseases, non-communicable diseases, like diabetes and then cancer that we do a lot of work in right now. I mean, the whole cancer diagnostic space is exploding. It's astonishing, all the new tools that are available, particularly for early cancer diagnosis and for therapy selection and for determining minimal residual disease. Did they respond to the therapy or not? And we've had the privilege of doing a lot of work in these areas recently to, again, really help people think about where does that go? Who's it of value to? What does it have to do at the end of the day? All the same principles.
Yes.
Another thing I think we learned over the years is the importance of modeling. And, I remember the famous statistician George Box once said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And that's certainly true.
That is.
I think we learned to use sort of classic health economic modeling in a different way. In particular, working with some of our associates, understanding that you can use impact modeling not just to look at the overall cost savings or incremental cost efficiency of something, but actually figure out what the performance characteristics of the test have to be through modeling. And that's quite interesting, working through these methods where we can determine the sensitivity or specificity impact on cost or clinical outcomes.
How the test needs to perform.
And if it's below this level in performance, it's not going to be useful. And if it's above, then every little bit that gets better than that, it's more valuable.
Yes.
And actually being able to say, and therefore we suggest that you set your specs for this. And that that's so important. It's I don't have any other way to do it that's quantitative like that.
It's quantitative.
Because we've seen so many times where people sit around a table and these experts will say, I think it should be 90% sensitivity. No, I think it should be 96% sensitivity. They don't have any numbers to back it up, but it's an opinion.
And we can model and quantitate.
We can model.
Quantify, but the importance there.
Yeah.
And the other side of that's of course modeling to support the development programs and the funding programs. But we also started taking a look at financial modeling, if you will, and market introduction modeling. So now we can essentially take any diagnostic product or device and fit it into a model for introducing it to any country in the world and have a reasonable understanding of the ballpark in terms of costs to introduce as well as what the financial opportunities could be, which is very helpful for the company planning side of things.
That's a really important point. We see a lot of people, when they go to talk to whoever the potential buyer is, they said, would you like to buy this?
Yes.
Why would I want to buy it? They can't articulate that.
So we're sitting here in 2023, 3 years into the SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 pandemic. It's amazing. It's been 3 years. But for the healthcare industry in general and the diagnostics industry specifically, there has been an amazing amount of change that has occurred. Starting back in 2020 with amazing new sources of funding, RADx, the Rapid Acceleration for Diagnostics program coming out of the NIH, and then another similar program coming out of Europe called ACT-A. These programs pumped, a couple of billion, $3 billion into the diagnostics industry and helped bring to market technologies that have been in development but weren't yet quite ready, and to speed them through the finalization of the development process and readiness for manufacturing and out to the marketplace. And it's been an amazing explosion in new technologies and new ideas coming into the diagnostics industry.
It is astonishing. I mean, the NIH had this notion that it was going to be possible to get products on the market faster than is usually the case, because they figured out that there were things that could be sped up. You could bring the right people in to help make all this happen.
And they were right.
And they were totally right. Yeah, it worked. Astonishingly. There were so many people who had already been working on potential products for the diagnostics industry, new platforms. And of course, they didn't know about SARS-CoV-2, but when they saw that, they realized they could switch and focus on that. And with that help, they were able to get them done. And now we have all these new technologies that are available to the market.
We do.
And what are they doing now? After they did SARS-CoV-2, they have to ask what's next. What else can we put on that platform?
Yes.
What else should we be putting on the market?
We're looking to see how do we bring this new testing infrastructure to market? How do we place it there? How do we support it? How do we train new individuals? And to your point just then, what's next? What are the next assays? What are the next tests that should come onto these platforms so that they can stay viable? You know, Mickey, part of that understanding the diagnostics ecosystem is also understanding the workflows and the patient pathways. You know, how will an individual or a caregiver or the family members present in a healthcare setting? And what happens once you get to that healthcare setting? Is there information that needs to flow? Are there medical practitioners? Are there laboratorians? Do you need to go to the lab? Does a sample collecting, phlebotomist come to you? What happens to all that information content? And how is that changing relative to going to perhaps a health clinic versus testing at home? It's all important stuff to understand in that ecosystem.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think one of the things that surprises a lot of people when we talk to them about the design of their products is that in some of these places, like an urgent care clinic, they have a business model where they want to get people in and out of there very quickly.
Yes.
And if your test's going to take an hour, they're not going to be able to use that information during that visit. Or they're going to have them come back to the clinic exam room again, and that's going to screw up their business model.
Yes.
So you've got to understand all those issues from the perspective of the people who are going to use it.
Yes.
And the fact that if they're going to help people with these products, they're going to have to be able to make enough money to keep doing that. And sometimes it's a surprise to people what the design needs to be to make that happen.
And coming out of the pandemic, one of the other surprises is the acceptance and the willingness of individuals to do their own testing, be it at home with an over-the-counter type product or self-testing as it's emerging all around the world now.
Yeah.
And people are actually pretty good at it. They can take responsibility, they can do the testing, but that's pointed to a whole new category of technology now that's needed in terms of easy-to-use tests and maybe instrument systems connected to a cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah, my sister, who's an accountant, asked me about PCR assays. I mean,
Isn't that great?
that could not have happened 5 years ago. It just never would have happened. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, the understanding now of the importance of diagnostics in the healthcare system is incredible, and that's something that hopefully we can continue to catalyze and keep front and center, so folks continue to understand on the funding side as well as on the consumer side that diagnostics really can make a difference.
They really can, and people expect it now.
Yes.
They're asking for it. One of the big problems that we knew of before that I wouldn't say it's gone away, but it's less of a problem now is that docs really didn't want to use the information from a home test in making a decision. And now, with SARS-CoV-2 testing at least, most states will permit them to enter that information of your home test into your EMR for the individuals. That's amazing to me.
Yes.
I just can't believe it.
And we've seen acceptance in the global front for the World Health Organization, others, for self-testing for HIV. In fact, it's now part of testing programs in many countries around the world.
Right. And having done so much work as we have in HIV self-testing, particularly in Africa, I think a lot of people don't realize that those tests now work as well in the hands of an untrained user as the best laboratory test for diagnostics.
Yes, it's astonishing.
It's amazing. That's an incredible advancement. I think it's really exciting what's happening in the whole area of new markers for diagnostic products. Who would have guessed how important, for instance, the microbiome was? The fact that the bacteria, the fungi, the viruses that live on and in us are so important to our health. They are not just on and in us, they are part of us. And we are recognizing more and more as every day goes by how important that is. And understanding which ones are perhaps missing, which ones are there but shouldn't be, those are all going to become extremely important pieces of information in managing disease. And another very exciting area is wastewater surveillance, something that we've talked a lot about. But the pandemic raised the awareness of this, looking for instance, SARS-CoV-2 in the water. But now we see that the programs are being expanded dramatically. Polio, monkeypox, foodborne illnesses of a variety of types, even antibiotic resistant genes. Those are all things that are going to be looked at in wastewater and will inform us very early of new epidemics, pandemics, outbreaks, which would otherwise have taken a few more weeks for them to show up in the clinic. But now we'll know it's coming.
Certainly.
Just amazing.
You know, Mick, we've talked a lot about infectious diseases, which is, of course, topical and top of mind coming out of this pandemic. But, you know, chronic diseases have been around a long time as well, and they impact, you know, many, many millions of people around the world. Let's spend a little time talking about our efforts and our discoveries and what we've seen in the chronic disease space.
Yeah. You know, it makes me think right away of oncology and all the types of biomarkers which are being discovered and applied to various aspects of the disease. Early detection, of course, is a very big area right now, using DNA sequences to determine the presence of tumors at a very early stage, or things such as circulating tumor DNA or so-called oncRNA. These are things that are being looked at in very sophisticated ways that are informing disease state in ways that we never would have guessed. I think it's very exciting to think about diabetes and type 1, type 2 diabetes, but diabetes is like one big disease, one big metabolic disease, because you know the complications of diabetes are cardiovascular disease, retinopathy, kidney, you know, all of the other organs are impacted by that. And so just thinking about this whole issue of context, when you think about diabetes, you have to think about all of that.
Yes.
And so the diagnostic approaches people are taking now are much broader than they have been in the past. Thinking about the molecular mechanisms of it and the risk of these other diseases at the same time, and how you monitor people with diabetes. For instance, you know, one of our favorites is the continuous glucose monitoring now.
Yes.
Because the dream was always being able to connect the status of your glucose on an ongoing basis and the therapy.
Yes.
So now the next step, of course, is bringing them all together. So you have an insulin pump along with your glucose, and you basically have an artificial pancreas as a result. So these are the things that are going on now, and being able to make things like a continuous glucose monitor that's inexpensive enough, lasts enough time.
Yes.
Because if you've got to change the thing every day, that's really a problem. And just the pace at which that whole world is transforming is amazing, and it's not possible without the diagnostics.
Yeah, and you could imagine that similar type of device, if not the same one, being used to monitor recovering cardiac patients or folks that have had organ transplants and need to have continuous monitoring, you know, for some months or a year or so afterwards. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, this whole issue of continuous monitoring is a really amazing area now that we've seen a lot happening in. You know, we're accustomed to having a situation where you, like with glucose, you take it today, maybe a week or two it's taken again. We've got home tests for glucose, but even that, it's not continuous. You're taking it only at special times. And the result of it is you don't really see what's happening over time. And you may be missing some important point where somebody ate a donut, it wasn't supposed to, and they shot up their glucose and it came back down again. But next time they took the glucose, it was low.
Yes.
So the fact that their hemoglobin A1C comes back, 90 days and looks high, they go, what's going on? The glucose looked normal. So the information of the points in between, and not just glucose monitoring, but so many other things now.
Yes.
Blood pressure, heart rate has been a surprise. Remember, we were talking to people at the Gates Foundation about this a few years ago, and talking about some data they got, I don't know where from, about baseball pitchers. And in fact, they were monitoring their pulse rates, and they get out on the mound, and it go up to 200.
Yes.
And they were just amazed that this was the case. But it happened over and over again. Unless they had been monitoring them continuously, they would not have known that.
Yes. It's proving to be a similar situation with severe asthmatics. Understanding the importance of monitoring the environment, locally at a real point in time, as well as some of your biometrics are proving to be very interesting triggers or, indicators that there's an attack pending.
Right.
Yes. One of the other exciting areas that's come out of the pandemic is research in more highly sensitive tests. So diagnostic tests that are faster, but also can get at determining if there's something going on much sooner because they're able to detect much lower levels of the target, protein or nucleic acid that they're looking for. And one of the areas where that's been applied, it's very exciting, is in neuroscience and Alzheimer's disease. And there are now some new markers coming out, and by golly, it looks like you could probably test for those markers in routine clinic situations. It doesn't need next-gen sequencing machines in some super laboratory.
Right.
There's a lot of evolution happening on that front.
Right. It's you don't know what you don't know when you can't measure something.
Yes.
And it is really amazing, these tau proteins, for instance, that become so important now. There's a p-tau 181 that's subject of a breakthrough status FDA submission, and p-tau 217 and other derivatives of tau. They seem to be really important not only in Alzheimer's disease, but also in other neurological conditions.
Yes, new tools.
And they got to design them right, or they're not going to be used in the right place by the right people.
Turning back again to some of the lessons learned coming out of the pandemic, it is amazing, as we stated earlier, the level of awareness now of the importance of diagnostics. And looking forward, we see, that level of awareness is likely to stay now. Consumers, patients are consumers now. They understand that there are new tools and they have the ability to take charge of their own health situation, be it from a wellness perspective or concern about an actual disease, an infectious disease or a chronic disease. And that's spreading over to point of care testing. It's spreading into self-testing, into the home. The telemedicine industry is exploding, and they are now being able to introduce tools. I'm sure as you all watch television, we see commercials now for the ability to do all sorts of testing in your own home. And if not the actual test itself, at least collecting samples that can be quickly sent out to a laboratory and results back the next day. Be it, various sexual transmitted diseases or vitamin status or thyroid status or whatever. It's almost unlimited now, what you can actually do in your own home.
It is amazing. Who would have guessed that it could be transformed as much as it has? And as you say, telemedicine too. Just the fact that most of the time it's possible for you to get access to a clinician on your phone or on your computer, and they're going to talk to you about your health condition, and maybe they can take care of it right there, or then you really do need to go see somebody else. But it's so much more convenient and so much faster.
Yes. We're almost living in a perfect time now for the device and diagnostic industry. All the advances over the last years in consumer electronics and consumer health and the ability on your own smartphone to have all these applications and track things that are of interest to you. That technology, that ability to move information, from one point to another is now being tied to the medical devices, and that's being tied back, as you mentioned earlier, to your patient medical records, and your physician offices now can have access to that through patient portals, and that's all coming together. And we even have the FDA and the World Health Organization, other regulatory bodies looking at this and saying, it's not rocket science any longer. It's not voodoo. We can trust this, and there's good information that can come out of it to inform these wellness or treatment decisions.
Yeah, and we have a few situations where getting that information right away is so important because many of the drugs don't work if they use them later. So I'm thinking of, for instance, SARS-CoV-2 with Paxlovid, and then, of course, flu with Tamiflu, and some of the other drugs available for that. Tamiflu, you don't use it in the first 48 hours, and it doesn't really work.
Yes.
But that means you got to have the test results within the first few hours, if even possible, so you can get the drug. So the situation now with being able to test to treat,
yes,
where you test yourself, you are able to talk to someone with the telemedicine. If they're convinced that this is flu, they say you can get your Tamiflu. Maybe a drone brings it to your door.
Yes.
It's we even know some of the early work that some of the insurers were doing where they sent people a package
Yes.
that had the test and the drug,
Yep.
which is really interesting. But, that couldn't have been done, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because,
Or hepatitis C.
Yeah.
Now that that's, now a curable disease, having kits for less than $100 where you have your supply of drugs, you have your diagnostic test, and you also have in there the ability to call into a physician. The number's right there as part of the instructions for use, and now you have just a little kit that is for testing and treating and curing hepatitis C.
Yeah.
All in the 20 years that we have been working at Halteres.
Yeah. Amazing.
It's amazing.
Speaking of new tools, who would have thought 5 years ago that we'd be doing podcast?
Welcome to Halteres Presents.
We've got the video series on interesting stories in the history of diagnostics. And I think this has been really quite an interesting development for us and a new way for us to communicate with people.
Yes, it's recognizing that there are other media that can be used to help our stakeholders, again, truly understand the science and the technology and the impact and what the future could look like through, pictures and words and not just, scientific white papers.
Right,
Yes.
right. With a little humor sometimes, too.
Yes, yes. Well, this has been a wonderful opportunity to reflect on the last 20 years at Halteres Associates and all the exciting changes in the healthcare industry and in diagnostics and devices around the world.
It really has, and it is hard to believe that it's been 20 years, but it has. And I look forward to what's going to happen in the next 20 years, how we can bring all the things we've learned and seen and bring that experience to people to help them create new diagnostics, improve the ones that we've got, and improve global health as a result of that.
Yes.
There's an old Roman saying which is, the wise person learns from the mistakes of others, the fool learns from their own. We've learned a lot from our mistakes and the mistakes of others, and we think we can help others not make those mistakes and to do things smarter because they know what the other mistakes have been.
And thank you again to our clients and our constituents and our friends. It's been a great journey working with you and helping you over these past 20 years, and we look forward to many more years working together.
Thanks so much for not only listening to us, but for working with us over these last 20 years. It's been a great joy. We hope that we've been helpful, and we hope to be helpful in the future. Thanks again, and goodbye.
Goodbye.